Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Welding Tips and Tricks podcast. I'm Jody Collier, and I'm here with Roy Crumrine.
How's it going?
And Jonathan Lewis.
Hey, everybody.
The topic we're going to tackle for this podcast is back safety. Lower back probably, but I've had problems from neck down to lower back since I was probably 19. And I know it's not a foreign topic. I don't really know anybody that hasn't had some back trouble. I don't know if it's an American thing or whatever, but I think it's an important issue. So important, in fact, that the last company I worked for, had a safety course on back safety that they had a contractor come in and teach them how to teach and everything, because a lot of man hours are missed on back problems, people missing time from work and whatnot. So if we can help a little bit in that regard from all of our experiences and going to chiropractors and even exercises and ways to lift things or not lift things, that's what this episode's about. I know it's not necessarily a welding topic, but I think it hits home to everybody, or it will if you live long enough. If you're in the trade long enough, probably going to tweak your back. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the welding industry because we're not really designed to have a weight on our head for long periods of time. And what do all of us do most of the day? Got a nice cantilevered weight on the top of our head, adding that extra little pressure on our backs. And it can definitely be a game changer. At the end of the day, if your helmet is a little bit on the heavy side, you'll feel it.
It can be a game changer. Going back to, when I got in the trade, I mean, all that was available was like fiber metal and Jackson, and then, the big heavy fiberglass helmets there was no real concern about making them lighter. They were just heavy, and you flip them down, they'd whack you in the sternum and put a bruise on you, and that, they've gotten a lot better, but the lighter, the better. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's, a lot of us as welders, we work, 8 hours is kind of a joke sometimes. We work 10, 12, 14-hour days. I've pulled 24-hour shifts before, and when you got a helmet up top, and then also you're pulling on chain falls, possibly come-alongs, you're hoisting pipe up chases, you're having to lift a pipe onto a mule, we use our back. And so let's just be smart about it. So let's talk about some things maybe that we've learned over the years that maybe can help that young buck getting out there to not be such a go hard coming out of the gate, and do some things smarter than I did them anyway, early on, because I did have some injuries, and I'm almost 64 now. So today we were talking about what topic we'll do for the podcast, and my back is just absolutely jacked up today, all the way from my neck down to my lower. And it's all related too. Your neck gets jacked up, it can kind of mess up the whole thing, and your neck is what takes a beating nodding that helmet down 1,000 times a day, and so it's an important topic. So I'll go ahead and just kind of like lay down what I've dealt with over the years. I was 18 or 19 and never had any back problems ever. Don't remember. And this is going through football, weight training and all that. Never really remember having any back problems. So I got out of high school, entered into junior college, and they had a weight room in the junior college. So I would try to get a workout in. Well, this particular day, I went in there early morning before class. And I crawled under a bar on a squat rack without warming up. And it wasn't like loaded to the gills, but it had a couple 100 pounds on it, probably. I crawled under it. It was at the bottom position. I'll just go ahead and do a set of squats. And it was a little heavy, not having warmed up early morning. I rounded my back. I felt a big shot of pain. And now, that was like, say, I was probably 19, and I've dealt with it ever since. It's been a chronic thing that I've had to think about. all those years, because that one morning I crawled under a stupid weight and didn't use good form and technique and did something to a disc, and now it's, you know, and don't get me wrong, I haven't been like in pain every day of my life ever since, but it's just been a thing. It's been a recurring thing ever since. So I've had to be really careful how I lift things. It's been a thing to where like because I've continued to work out, I've continued to exercise, I've continued to lift weights my whole life, and I could literally, you know, have 300 or 400 pounds on the bar doing some type of shrug or something and not feel any ill effects the next day. Or I could twist wrong to pick up a pencil and be down for a few days out of work. So how do you make sense of that? Well, who knows? I had a chiropractor tell me one time that, you know, over the years, you get little slivers of disc material that just float around back there in your back, and they're not a problem until they get up against the nerve. And then they cause a lockdown, you know, they cause everything to spasm. And then that sort of sends you into a little vicious cycle. You know, it's like, well, how do I get rid of the spasm? Well, when that thing's up against the nerve, you know, well, it's a survival mechanism to protect everything. Your muscles kind of lock down to stabilize everything, but it's debilitating, hard to go to work. So, you know, for myself, I found it stretching and doing all these little rolling out on a foam roller, and I do all kinds of things. I still do every day. I'm rolling my back out on a roller on the floor, you know. So I'm sure I'm not alone in this. You know, it's just the back problems are a real problem, and they can make you miss time from work, and it can just be very limiting. You guys have any tips on that?
Use a crane.
Exactly.
Whenever possible.
Yeah.
Use a crane, get help. Don't be the hero. Don't be Superman trying to move something heavy. I know we've all done it. We're all stupid. You know, when you're young and dumb and you think you're invincible and I don't need help. I can get that. And then you go, that one time, and that plagues you for the rest of your life.
That has been my experience. Like when I was young, you know, my early 20s, I was pretty dang strong, but I wasn't as strong as I thought I was. That's for sure. So somebody said, "Hey, can you get one into this?" Yeah, I was the man. You know, I got it. I got you. And there was a time when I was on one end of a piece of like 10-inch heavy wall, and there were a couple of guys on the other end, and we were trying to get it on a mule cart, which is just a nickname for a little trolley cart that you move heavy stuff around on. And I was standing in a puddle. And so the cart scooted out from under it. They were on the other end. They dropped their end, and I've got the whole one end of this thing. It's probably was close to 400 pounds that I had. I'm like, all right, what do I do now? I tried to kind of ease it down, but I was standing in a puddle. My feet shot out from under me. Pipe came down on my knee, sideways on my knee, and sent me to the hospital. Now, that wasn't a lower back thing. That was just a stupid thing. That was just a dumb thing. I had no business picking up that end of that pipe to start with. I mean, there were come-alongs and stuff that we could have used that would have taken a little longer. But like I said, I was young and dumb. And, oh, yeah, I got you. I got this. I'll grab this end, you know. Don't do that. Don't do that. Use a mechanism. Use a strap and a come-along, a chain fall, or get 5 people if you got them to make sure that nobody gets hurt. But you know, fortunately, it just came down crashing on the side of my knee and pinched it against the floor. So it was just like a massive contusion. You know, it just bruised everything up, and I was on crutches for a few weeks, but it didn't really break anything or anything like that. It just took a long time to get over it.
Got lucky.
Yeah, I was lucky. But that was just an example of just that being young and dumb that you talked about, and thinking that you're stronger than you are. Well, maybe I was strong enough to hold it, but maybe not in a puddle of water, and maybe not when other guys drop their end. But it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened anyway. It should have been like, no, I'm good. No, there's no point in us trying to lift this. This is too heavy. It's a big piece of 10-inch heavy wall. You know, let's get some straps on this thing, and it wasn't like in a fab shop. It was in a nuclear plant, but there was time. There was no rush on getting this thing up on the cart and getting it to where it belonged. We could have taken all day long, wouldn't have mattered. So let's like I said, get enough hands in here, or let's get some come alongs and chain falls and anything it takes, but let's not use our lower back to move this heavy stuff. And that's just a real good tip for anybody. Just like if you're in a fab shop, use the overhead crane, use a jib crane, or get several hands on it, because it's only a few seconds. That way, you're not really pulling anybody off their work. They go, hey, can you guys come over here and give me a hand to this? Let's all get it up on this cart, or let's all ease it down onto this thing, or whatever. But don't be young and dumb like I was, because it bit me. It bit me hard.
Yeah, I know. Just today, I mean, this past couple of weeks, I've been dealing with a lower back issue that occurs with me from time to time. I don't know what the deal is. My hips like get out of whack or something, and I get all twisted up for some reason. Go to the doctors and the physical therapists, and they look at you and they go, huh. It's like, well, that's not good. And so no idea what happens, why it comes on. It's just been the last couple years it's been affecting me, and it got me pretty good on Monday, and finally last Monday, and finally it worked itself out and everything. And then I was at work today, and we're moving around this 6-inch piece of I think it's 6-inch schedule 10 Inconel pipe that was like 30 feet long, and moving it back into the rack. And me and another guy were just trying to kind of slide it across the floor to get it up into the rack, because the way they've got their material rack is in honestly a really stupid position. There's no way you can use a crane. There's no way to use any type of mechanical things to get anything in and out. You have to manually put it in and out. And it's so stupid where they've got it, but it is what it is. I was on the one end just kind of sliding it in between my legs, and my other side of my back, I just felt a nice little, it's like, man. So I've been pretty slow moving all day long, trying not to tweak that even more. It's just one of those things. I don't know if it's just getting older or what, but I was trying to do too much this morning. I was like, we'll just get this pipe out, cut the foot off that I need, and put it back. And here I am again on the floor at home trying to do some stretches or something. It's just like, should have just had the young co-ops move it around.
Well, like I mentioned it a little bit earlier, when I worked at the last big company I worked for, which is Delta, it's a well-known thing. I mean, the companies know how much time they lose, how much employee man hours they lose from back injuries.
Oh, yeah.
And it's up there. And so this company saw that opportunity, and it was a company of like a group of doctors, I think orthopedic doctors or something like that, got together and created this back safety course, and they sold it to them for a pretty good little penny. They would sell it to companies because they could pitch it like, hey, what are your hours lost on back injuries? And they say, just do the math. If it's this, we guarantee you that you will save X amount of lost hours if you buy this back safety course from us and implement it and teach all your employees. It's a slam dunk. And so they did. It was actually a pretty good course. So the only thing I can remember from it, though, was like, warming up. It was a course like they just did a sort of a PowerPoint. And then they also took you through a little obstacle course where they had you lifting things like sandbags and ladders and just, odd shaped things like we all lift at work. How to lift with one hand, you bend your knees. The one thing I remember was nose between your toes. So you want to have you don't want to bend over so far that your nose, that you couldn't like drop a plumb bob from your nose, and it should just land right somewhere between your toes instead of way out. So that makes you bend at the knees, and use your legs instead of your lower back. You don't want to hump your lower back over to do anything. But all that said, it literally is, it's all very good advice, and it works. But like I said earlier, you could lift a bunch of weights and not suffer any ill effects, and lift even when I move. I could just move in my chair and reach over here to pick up a pencil and then be like, get that pain. And, so sometimes some of it's just very unpredictable. And it's just, like I said, I think it's just little slivers of whatever disc material or bone spurs that dislodge, and then they get up against a nerve and you're just going to have a spasm. So what do you do from there? For me personally, laying up in bed is not the best thing. It's kind of best for me to keep moving, even though it hurts. It's best for me to walk and even ride a bike and stretch and, try to work it out. That seems to be, for me, better than just laying around to get over it. Everybody's, I'm sure, different, but I've come up with all kinds of little exercises and stretching routines. And like I say, those foam cylinders, I've bought probably half a dozen of them. I've ordered probably half a dozen, but I've given them to my kids and stuff when they have problems too. So, I've still got 2 of them, but I use them all the time, every day. Every day I'm on the floor rolling on those things, to just kind of massage and loosen and stretch the vertebrae and all that. So whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
One thing I thought was funny that you had mentioned there, Jody, is when you did the example of like reaching for a pencil and going, it's like, if you've had that happen, that sound.
Yeah.
Exactly what that feels like, and you cringed a little when you heard it, because that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I cringed. I was like, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, because you know what you're about to encounter. What the next few days are going to look like. And that happens.
Something that we don't really think about a lot when it comes to welding and just working, and if you work at a bench a lot. I remember, I think it was at my first aerospace shop that I worked at, that was actually like the first bench welding job that I had. And, I thought it was pretty interesting. It's like, wow, I just have to like basically sit here all day. This is kind of cool. And I remember watching the lead welder there, and he had this like really, really thick foam chunk that he bought at a upholstery place on his chair, and his chair was as low as it could possibly go. I mean, like really, really low to the ground. And I always thought it was strange until I watched him weld. Then I was watching him work on the positioner, and he would put his chair really, really low so that he would straighten his back out while he was sitting in his chair. He wouldn't be hunched over. And that kind of hit me a little bit. I was like, that kind of makes sense. To lower your chair down so you have to stretch up a little bit so you're not hunched over in your shoulders all day long. And I started doing that, and man, it does make a big difference. So if you're a bench welder and you can lower your chair down a little bit to straighten your back out, do it.
Yeah, yeah, go to the effort of figuring out ways to get more comfortable and ways to not be hunched over, not have your neck hunched over for long periods, not have your back hunched over. Go to the effort. Same thing. I saw guys, in the aerospace industry, everybody pretty much had a positioner in their booth. So like a Pangeris or a Jetline positioner, where you could manipulate the part any angle or any height. And this one guy I'm thinking about, his chair was more like a leather office chair with armrests than it was a chop stool, adjustable in height. And he would tilt the part, and he would drop the chair and lean it back and scoot it in. And like I said, he was just like he wasn't hunched at all. He was looking right at the weld and perfectly comfortable. Took a little bit of effort to get there. He had to adjust his positioner and adjust his chair and do all the stuff you're talking about that old guy did, but kind of worth it in the end. You camp out on that old ABC saying for welders, always be comfortable. it's more than just being comfortable. It's more like always use good posture and not put yourself in a bind for long periods, because that has a long-term effect when you're hunched over, and then when you're doing that for a long time, and then you all of a sudden have to lift something, you're in a very vulnerable state at that point, when you've been kind of, bending that pencil all day long, and then, now you're going to stress it.
Yeah.
It's I think everybody can kind of relate to that, especially most of us have pretty long commutes into work. So you're sitting there, unless you got a perfect seat in your vehicle, if you're like me, I used to hop out and it'd take me 5 minutes to get warmed up from the ride in, where my back was killing me just from the ride. Now I've got to go sit and hunch over in a chair and do the same thing, So our backs take a beating, no matter what you're doing as a welder. If you're in a ditch or if you're in an aerospace job on a bench, it's just different, but it still taxes your lower back, and you feel it because you realize when you hurt your back, there's nothing that doesn't use your back in life, so it's important.
And this to me is a little bit of a pet peeve that I've got when it comes to, and I'm guilty of it myself, but it's a very much of a pet peeve, is why do the office workers that are sitting at their or at their desks working on the computers and stuff, they all get these really fancy ergonomical chairs that, can move all these which ways and everything like that. And then us out on the floor, we're sitting in our chairs, working on our bench, welding parts all day long. We get the trash that, we literally pulled out of the dumpster because, hey, this piece of junk's better than the piece of junk that I've got that's covered in tape and packing foam and all this other stuff. Why don't companies invest money into making good chairs or having good chairs for the employees out on the floor so that they don't hurt their backs, they're comfortable, and they can work just like the office people? It drives me insane.
Can't tell.
Well, I mean, even at work, I've got a broke chair that literally they rolled out from the office and it had trash unless you need it. And I grabbed it and rolled it over because it was better than the piece of junk chair that I had before. And it's like, why do we get the leftovers? Why do we get the garbage? Our backs hurt just as much as yours do.
Yep.
Give us some good chairs too out here. I know they get destroyed because it happens, but come on now. So if I ever get my company up to where I've got employees and I've got a nice shop, trust me, there will be some really nice chairs in the benches.
Yep.
I'm sitting in a nice, really, really nice seat right now. I mean, it's a good thing to be the boss of this company, I guess.
I just don't understand why we're the ones out on the floor actually making the money, doing all the work, but yet we get the garbage from the office people constantly.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly how it was.
And we're tickled to death to take it.
I know. When I started with Delta, if you wanted a chair, they had them in stock, and you ordered one out of stock, and it was a metal chair, not adjustable in height, had a little backrest on it, but it wasn't adjustable, no cushion, no nothing. You couldn't sit in it for very long without, you'd have to adjust your position, or because you couldn't adjust your chair. And so exactly what you were saying, people would go out to the scrap bin, and as office chairs got scrapped, they would bring them in and tape them up or do whatever and use them for shop chairs, because they were so much better than the crappy metal stool that was available to them for their work booth, And but what I did see also was that we had some good times where, record profits and everything, and then they started saying, hey, pick out whatever chair you want, and people were getting these ergonomic $400 chairs that tilted and raised up and everything, and because they were like, hey, we want ergonomic chairs for you. But at first, it was just like you were talking about. It was like the biggest pieces of crap out of the scrap bin you'd ever saw, but they were so much better than the metal shop stools that nobody cared what they looked like. They were way more comfortable. And it was just an old beat up office chair for the most part.
You know, how good is it for your back to be sitting on a chair with 5 wheels, or I should say 5 spaces for wheels, and missing 2, while you're trying to balance on this chair while you're welding around this part in a funky position, and then the chair flops over and you're trying to like hold yourself. It's like, how is that not a back injury waiting to happen?
Yep. I know.
I know a lot of people probably say, well, then don't sit in the chair, just stand up. It's like, well, that doesn't always work either because the benches are too low for standing up,
Right.
but they're not.
Well, as an aerospace welder, you're sitting and you're standing.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of times you have to sit. It's very impractical to stand on some parts. Some parts are round. It's like sticking your head in a barrel. You sit down and you're humped over with your head way up inside the round part. There's tons of parts like that, 3-4 foot in diameter, and you got to get to some little nook and cranny down inside that thing. And so you bolt it on your positioner and you're all up in it, but you still got to sit down. You can't, there's no way you can stand and do it. And other people listening to this might think, well, yeah, at least you get to sit. I'm in the ditch, or I'm on my knees, or I'm crawling up a chase, or I'm in the mezzanine, or I've done all that too. And then I transitioned into the aerospace thing, and with back problems through all of it. And so yeah, you just want the best. You want the best scenario for whatever the situation is. You want to got to be comfortable and take care of your back, and put some thought into it. So that's all I'm saying. Just really, you got to think, got to make yourself comfortable through your work day. Get a light as possible welding helmet, and not even just light, but ergonomically designed to where even if it's light, but it's hanging way out here and putting weight, from a leverage standpoint, you can feel it, even though it's a light helmet. There are helmets like that like stick way out and put undue stress on your neck because they're just poorly designed, but you got to all I'm saying is you got to put some thought into your back, whether it's helmet, your chair, how you lift things, because it just, you're looking at 40 years or so in this trade. And, when you get in toward that 40th year, you're going to wish you did if you didn't take care of your back.
Okay. You want to be able to lift your grandkids.
Exactly. Well said. End of podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is I know we're all, especially when we're young and everything, we're all feel like we're macho and I can do that, blah, 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 blah. And we all do it. And anybody that says they don't, they're lying. And, so it is what it is, but just be aware of it. I mean, I know we've all been told to lift with our, legs, don't lift with your back, all this and that and stuff. And then, like I said, just today, I tweaked my back, bending over funky, trying to move a pipe around. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, oh, okay, we can just slide it across the floor. It's no biggie, but it caught something and I pulled just right and
I know.
Dang it.
And
I'm hobbling around for the rest of the day trying to lift a 1/2-inch piece of pipe. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 feet long, but it's only a 1/2 inch. And I'm like,
yep.
Ugh.
Yep. You put a sandbag on the floor or a suitcase on the floor or a dumbbell on the floor. You think that's pretty straightforward. And there's a way of properly lifting it to use your legs and not put undue stress or not torque your back or twist your back while you're lifting it. But in the real workplace, when you are, roping a piece of pipe up a chase or something, or somebody's handing you something heavy and you're on a ladder or whatever, you just have to react on the fly and do the best you can. There's no brace yourself and nose between the toes and bend your knees.
Hold on a minute.
There's just like, don't drop this chain fall on the people below, or somebody's going to get hurt. It's the workplace is unpredictable. You can't always use proper form. And so here's some practical tips that I think might help some people. You know, there was what was that show? You remember hearing, like, remember seeing back in like the 80s. And there was a show, I think, with Michael Keaton in it where the Japanese were kind of being involved with the car manufacturing.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember they would have their exercise classes in the morning before work.
What was that called? I have to look that one up. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad idea. And actually at Delta, we got into doing an exercise warm up type thing. Therapy, it was dealing with like even carpal tunnel and the lower back and stretching and all that kind of stuff. And before you're going to do any rigorous lifting or anything in a workday, it would pay you to spend 5 or 10 minutes doing some deep knee bends, bending over, touching your toes, getting all loosened up. Because for me, early morning, like right when I get done with the car ride, my back's kind of really hurting from the ride, to go right in and start lifting stuff that'd be an injury waiting to happen. But if I took some time and stretched and stretched my, squatted down, bent over, stretched my lower back out, did, 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops would make a world of difference to get you kind of ready for that kind of stuff. It would be worth it, and also, like I said, for me, I've got a few, exercises that have really helped, stretching the lower back both ways, touching your toes, but then also like doing some yoga type stuff where you're stretching your lower back the other way, and like what they call a cobra pose, where your back is really arched and your neck is way back. Stretch it both ways, forward and back. Spend a little time doing that every day, and then maybe doing some scissor kicks and things like that on some floor exercises. You can look them up. This is not like rocket science. You can look up stuff on the internet and find out lower back therapy, rehab exercises, and you'll find some stuff, and it pays off. It pays dividends. But I'm just talking from a guy who, I hurt my back before I ever even started welding. So I dealt with it my whole career. And it's part of the reason I transitioned into aerospace, is because like, man, it's like, my back is killing me every day working, as a pipe fitter. So yeah, just one guy's experience, but hope it helps somebody.
That movie's called Gung Ho.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good movie.
But, yeah, it is. But that was one of the things that was like, American companies typically in that time anyway were not at all adopting those principles as far as morning exercises before the workday. Now some of them do. Like I said, we were doing it at Delta. It was like, hey, after break time, spend this extra. If anybody that wants to hang around and do this little routine with us, let's do it. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. It helped.
Yeah, probably be fairly beneficial to even just do a little stretching before you left your house. It's something. And drinking more water in the morning instead of a big old cup of coffee probably would help too, lubricate things.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
That's not going to happen.
Well, you can do both. It's just that it depends on the length of your commute, because you ain't making it in if you do drink a big, drink 16 ounces of water and a big cup of coffee and a bran muffin. You're going to get caught on the bridge and you're going to be like, hello.
So how about you, Jonathan?
No, my back's perfect. I'm here listening to you guys thinking, man, it must be rough. No, I'm just kidding.
You're getting there.
No, I messed my back up when I was a teenager. And like you, Jody, or like you, Roy, both of you, really, every day or almost every day, either my neck hurts or my back hurts. And it doesn't take much to mess it up, either at the gym or playing a game or wrestling around with the kids or lifting something. Yeah, it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. And unfortunately, I was with one of those men that wanted to prove I was a man more than the people I worked with, and now I'm paying for it. But at the time, I worked for a furniture company, delivering new furniture, and then I worked in that kind of stuff, like at Sears, the moving company. That all messed my back up. Improper lifting, trying to be a man, that kind of stuff. Now I try to use things to lift as best I can, but that doesn't always work, as all of us know. And I am definitely know exactly what you guys mean by picking up the pencil and throwing your back out. I've done some stupid stuff to throw my back out, and it's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
But I mean,
The
it's just the
whole
way it
thing.
is. And it's try not to do certain things. And the gym lately has been killing me more than anything. You just think you're all right, and then you just I could try this. Next thing you know, you're hunched over and messed all up. But yeah, I mean, all the stuff you said is good. To get in the good chair, that was a big thing. I did I think it was a TIG job. I guess it really matter, but I was sitting on a stool type of a bench or stool, whatever, years ago for days in a row. And when I got done, almost done with that job, my back was one of the worst that it's been. It was. And the only thing we could figure is sitting the way I was on the stool, it messed it up. Just the whatever. I still have that stool, but I don't sit on it. Well, I don't sit on it like that anymore, I guess. But so I have other comfortable chairs, and I kind of joked about sitting in a comfy chair. I went to I forget Staples or something like that. We went there like a couple times just randomly. And well, actually, after I hurt my back, I went and got new chairs. But then we went a couple times since then. And occasionally, you'll find the more expensive office chairs for pretty cheap, mainly the floor models. And I'd recommend looking at getting one of those, or buying at full price if that's your jam. But yeah, this one I'm sitting in now is I don't even know what it costs. It's not a really really expensive one, but we didn't pay very much for it, and it is comfy for TIG work and whatnot. It rocks back and forwards and does all the some of the fancy stuff. That makes a big difference when I was doing more production TIG work and MIG work as well. The only thing I will warn you with MIG is you can catch your seat on fire, so be careful.
Mhm.
But other than that, the stretches definitely help. I've not been going to the gym and doing that kind of stuff for very long, so I'm not an expert in those areas. But the stretching and the way that they do it definitely makes a big difference. The days I go when there's no one around, if I go later in the day and I don't do the proper stretching, I usually end up hurting my back. But honestly, most of the more times than not, it's you're out on a job or out in the shop, you lift something stupid, or your kid comes plowing into you from behind, and being a 5-year-old and messes your back up, whichever one.
That's a real common thing. Kids just wanting to jump into your arms or something, or jump on your back, and you're not ready for it. Obviously, you're never ready for that, and
Right.
it can really put a strain on you. But how do you stop that from happening? That's just part of being a dad. You're going to have kids jump on you.
Yeah, it messes me up. My kids know not to do it, but they still do it. I don't understand that.
Yeah,
But
they're jumping from their vantage point. Their back doesn't hurt at all.
yeah, right.
What's your problem, Dad?
I
You're
would
big and
say
strong. Yeah.
I would say if there's one thing I could go back, how you always see those things, if you could tell your younger self 3 words kind of a thing, what would you say? If I could go back and change one thing of the past, I honestly think it would be my back more than anything. You might could say, oh, you can tell yourself this or that, or tricks to be a millionaire, but none of that matters if your back's messed up all the time. It can be bad. Of
Pay for a
late,
chiropractor.
yeah. I mean, I've been laying on last week. I guess last week I was on ice. I messed my neck up. That was just overdoing it at the gym. But between my neck and back, it's a common thing. And a lot of times we will, like my forklift is down right now. I'm in the middle of trying to get it fixed. And so we're having to lift things by hand, which is not too fun. So we're trying, all kinds of different things to not mess her back up and lift steel up onto the saw. And it's not that bad. But I know every time we bend over to pick that steel up, that one of these times I can mess it up easily.
Yep.
So get an overhead crane, get a forklift,
Yep.
get a chain fall, get something to help your back, or get a wife or a husband. I mean,
I'll tell you something that I have found recently. I've always had like some type of a handheld massage type electronic thing that you can reach and put pressure on those areas on your lower back or your neck. That really helps work out the trigger points. Really, you can find them too. You just work it. You find a place like, oh my gosh, that's hurts so bad, hurts so good or whatever when you're working it out. But for a birthday a year or two ago, my daughter and son-in-law got me one of those percussive massagers that are, you see them advertised all the time, and that's very helpful, especially for neck type work, neck type soreness and everything. I mean, you can tell a big difference after just reaching up and working over those little sore points for maybe 5 minutes, and you get finished and you get up and you're like, wow, I'm about 50% better. Then, it's very noticeable difference, extremely noticeable. It's not like it fixes the problem, but any kind of relief is good when you're all bound up like that, and it's very helpful.
I'm on Amazon looking it up. What you're talking about, is that a percussion? Say the word right.
Mm-hmm.
For muscle massager or something like that.
Yeah. It's kind of looks like a gun almost. Trigger, pistol grip kind of a thing on it. It's got these different little round balls or little forked prods or whatever, depending on which. I just use basically a round ball. I haven't found a lot of difference on whatever tip you put in it, but you just start bearing down on those little sore areas on your traps and your neck areas and things like that. And you just work them over, man. Just get on them, and you will notice a difference after you give yourself a little 5-minute run on those things. And it's like, man, this is, really worth the money spent.
There's one on here for $40. Well, I don't know which one you have, but I'm sitting there thinking for $40 to $100.
Yeah, I think mine is probably. I don't even want to guess because it was a present, so I don't know. They might have went to 40. I think it was closer to, $150 or $200. You can go way higher, but mine's good. I'll get the link if I can send it to you. But I'm perfectly satisfied with it. It seems to work really well. Got a nice little case for it and everything. But man, that thing is really helpful for the neck. And my neck is what's really been giving me a lot of problems, over the past couple of years. And I know it's from welding, and it's not just welding. It's a combination of football, all those collisions I had in high school. That's how they teach you to hit, hit with the helmet to helmet, put a lick on him, put a helmet on him. And, all those times I felt like I had 230 volts jolting down my neck from a football hit, they're all kind of coming home to roost now. And after, a couple 100,000 knotting the helmets down too over 40-something year career is kind of, coming together, a confluence, if you will, of those two things. And so, I have days that are fine where I'm not really in much pain, but other days like I'm kind of bound up and it's hard to back out of the driveway, turn my head around enough, so got to figure out something to do about that. And that helps. The massager helps.
I will say that you did go to the chiropractor. I haven't been in a while and I need to go, but the chiropractor I went to in Ohio, I really liked him, did a good job and whatnot. But he said he probably sees about every welder in our area. And he said the problem is flicking the helmet down. This is what he said. One of the main causes, of course, lifting stuff too. He said that repetitive flipping of the helmet down. Him and I, it got to be kind of friends, I guess. But and he picked my brain about a lot of different things with the welding world and stuff. And he's like, honestly, I think he said a lot of the problems was taking out, like lifting things wrong or whatever. He said, I think it's because you guys flipped the helmet. And you know how we flip helmets? We're pretty like, we got that jolt. He said that over time will mess your neck, and my neck's more messed up than both are messed up. He said that's one thing. There's nothing you can do to get around that. For the most part, they got helmets now that a little bit better. You can leave down and whatnot, but none of us do that. I don't. So hardly anybody leaves their helmet down all day, just to avoid flipping their helmet down.
No, it's a thing. You're going to flip it. You got to see. You got to see to do your fixturing, even if you're, you can sort of see, even with a some of the really good auto darkenings that are out today that go down to a 2.0, but you sometimes can't see quite good enough to see the numbers on a fastener, or, you're always flipping your helmet down. But same here. When I was like, I went to one of my first chiropractors that I went to back in the 80s. He went. I remember him telling me a story. He went to Life Chiropractic there in Georgia, in Marietta, a big chiropractic school there in that area. And he said his professor was showing the class this X-ray of this neck, and it had all these freaking, it was all jacked up, had all these bone spurs and calcium deposits and all that. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's that, like a 80-year-old man?" He said, "No, it's a welder." So same. Apparently, it can have a really bad effect. All that nodding, your body's not meant to have that weight on its head and nod it 100, 200, 300 times a day, up and down, and then have to lift something right after that. So, and your spine's all kind of related. Like your neck can go out, and it can cause compensations in lower vertebrae, and it can, throw your lower back out even. And I'm not one of these that, think that chiropractic is the cure to, the world's problems. I do believe it has helped me. But, it makes sense to me that, hey, this is a whole line of different little joints here. And if one gets out, it's going to affect the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So to me, that makes sense. You got to pay some attention to it. And welding is nothing you would do to create a healthy spine. That's for sure.
No, not really.
So and boys and honestly, girls
wearing your hard hats.
Yeah, wearing a hard hat too.
Hard hat, man, dude. I'm telling you, I don't know how many times I've messed my neck up wearing a hard hat. And I'm not saying, I am in no way saying don't wear a hard hat. I'm just stating a known fact. You're used to your head being at a certain height, and you add another 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, whatever it is, sticks off your head. You go and wrap that up against something and twist your neck. My goodness. It's like, really? I mean, I'd rather hit my helmet, the hard hat, than smash my head open. Don't get me wrong, but still, I've messed my back and neck up several times just by doing that.
Me too. Like you said, if there's a piece of, I don't even know what they call them, but when they form up concrete, those all threaded, things with I don't even know what they call them. But anyway, sometimes they're still left in the concrete. And my fitter before has stood up without his hard hat on and just put a big gash in his head hitting one of those things. So I'd a lot rather have a hard hat on standing up like that, but you're still taking a lick.
Yeah.
Whether or not it puts a gash in your head or whatever, it's a jolt to your neck and your spine when you hit something with your hard hat on. And then you, like I said, having your hard hat, like I've forgotten about that. I mean, most of the jobs, construction jobs I worked on, you had to have your hard hat on. You had to have your welding helmet was hooked to your hard hat with the ears or with the strap, one or the other. And that's a lot of weight on your head, nodding down all day long. It wears on you after a while.
It does, but like I said, it's definitely worth wearing. I'm not saying that at all. It's just another one of those things you don't think of until you smack it up against something or lift your head up and it's sticking out farther than you think. Well, there went my back for a week or my neck for a week. But that's better. Yeah. I mean, it is better than end up in the hospital or something. I don't want anybody to write us an email and saying you're advocating improper. No, that's not it. It's just I'm on our necks and our back.
Just be careful.
That's right.
Yeah. It sounds like we're discouraging anybody from getting in the trade, and I'm really not. It's just that you got to go into it eyes wide open. And I think that a young person going in, hearing what we're talking about here, it's just like, I hope the impression that it makes is that somebody will be like, well, heck, I don't want to deal with that. I want to make the right choices early on. Get, use the crane to lift, use my legs to lift, stretch before work so I don't, throw my back out. get the lightest helmet I can with the best ergonomic design that doesn't hurt my neck at the end of the day. And yeah, go out there and have your career and make your money. But I don't know that I'd change things that I would change some things. I wouldn't have climbed under that freaking barbell in the morning. That's for sure. That's probably the one thing that would have changed everything. But I can't do anything about that right now. All I can do is deal with, play the hand I've been dealt at this point. And so now it's just I have to stretch, and I have to be careful what I do and not overdo it in the gym. And I still like to exercise and stay in shape, keep my heart in shape and all that stuff. But I got to work around the lower back and the neck things to do it. So hopefully that young man out there hearing this, make some better choices than I made and be a little bit better shape when he gets my age.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Well, got anything else to throw in there?
Nah, I think it's a good place to put a pin in it. Like I said, this is just to kind of remind everybody to slow down. You're not invincible. I know you think you are. You're not. Just don't hurt yourself. Use a crane if you can. Get help. Get a forklift. You want to lift your kids. You want to lift your grandkids when you're older. Just trust us. Get help.
Yeah.
Yep.
Words of wisdom.
All right. Well, we'll put a pin in this episode. We're going to close this episode by thanking everybody for listening. We want to also thank everybody who continues to support the show and gets access to the after show. If you'd like to support the show and get access to that, head over to patreon.com/welding tips and tricks podcast.
And if you'd like to reach us here at the podcast, our email address is weldingtipsandtrickspodcast@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to call and leave us a voicemail, our phone number is 915-308-7024. And I'm Roy Crumrine.
I'm Jody Collier.
I'm Jonathan Lewis. Don't hurt your back.
And that's a wrap.